It began with whispers, soft, almost inaudible, like the rustling of leaves in a gentle breeze, rumors of a strange illness far away, a distant echo that seemed too far to touch us. A few isolated cases dismissed as an anomaly. Life went on, oblivious. The world kept spinning. People continued their routines, unaware of the storm brewing on the horizon. We didn't see it coming. Not at first. The signs were there, but we were too engrossed in our daily lives to notice. The news mentioned a novel virus contained to a single city. It seemed like just another headline, another story in the endless news cycle. Images flickered across our screens, hazmat suits, deserted streets, scenes that felt like they belonged in a dystopian movie, not in our reality. A pang of sympathy, perhaps, but it felt distant. We watched with mild concern, but it was a world away. It was someone else's problem. We continued with our lives, convinced that it wouldn't reach us, a tragedy unfolding on a far-off stage. We were mere spectators, watching from the safety of our homes. We scrolled through our feeds, our attention spans fleeting. Each new update was just another piece of information to consume and discard. Memes about hand sanitizer and face masks provided fleeting amusement. We laughed, shared, and moved on. A brief distraction before we moved on to the next viral trend. The gravity of the situation hadn't sunk in yet. The world felt vast, our lives untouched. We were wrong. The whispers grew louder, turning into a roar that we could no longer ignore. The illness spread, crossing borders and oceans, reaching our doorsteps. Suddenly, it wasn't just a distant problem. It was here, affecting our friends, our families, our communities. The realization hit hard. We were not invincible. The world, once so vast, now felt small and interconnected. Our actions, our choices, had consequences. The whispers on the wind had become a storm, and we were all caught in its path. The time for ignorance was over. It was time to face the reality of our new world. The virus spread with insidious speed. Borders slammed shut, cities locked down. What was once a distant threat became our terrifying reality. The world held its breath, waiting. Fear became the common language. Empty supermarket shelves reflected our anxieties. Every cough, every sneeze, a potential threat. We became prisoners in our own homes, glued to the news, desperate for answers.
The outside world became a danger zone. Social distancing, self-isolation, words that became shackles, reminders of our invisible enemy.
Schools closed, businesses shuttered. The rhythm of daily life ground to a halt. The silence was deafening. No bustling streets, no laughter of children. The air, once filled with the hum of activity, now carried a weight of dread. We spoke through screens, our smiles strained, our eyes betraying our fear.
The outside world became a danger zone. Social distancing, self-isolation, words that became shackles, reminders of our invisible enemy.
Then came the night. A night like any other, or so we thought. An unsettling stillness hung in the air. Dogs barked at nothing. A chorus of sirens wailed in the distance. And then the whispers started. They slithered through the darkness, carried on the wind. Not human whispers, no. These were different. Ancient, primal sounds. They spoke of fear, of change, of something monstrous awakening. We locked our doors, but the sound seeped in, burrowing under our skin. Section 5, the transformation begins. The virus, it seemed, was not done with us. It mutated, evolved.
The sick didn't just get sick, they changed. Reports trickled in, each more horrifying than the last. The infected, once our friends, our neighbors, became something else.
Their eyes, once filled with life, now burned with a cold, unsettling light. Their skin took on an unnatural pallor. Their movements were jerky, disjointed, driven by a hunger we couldn't comprehend. Section 6, Echoes in the Silence. The world watched in horror as the virus tightened its grip. The news, once a source of information, became an endless reel of nightmares.
We were living in a horror movie, but there was no escape, no rewind button. The whispers continued, growing louder, more insistent. They seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once.
A constant, chilling reminder of what we had become. Section 7. A world remade. The world we knew, the world of crowded streets and carefree laughter, was gone. It was a time when we took for granted the simple joys of life, the spontaneous gatherings, the unmasked smiles, and the unrestrained hugs. We moved through life with a sense of invincibility, unaware of the fragility of our existence. In its place stood a desolate landscape, haunted by fear and uncertainty. The once vibrant parks where children played and families picnicked were now silent, overgrown with weeds and neglect. The bustling markets, once filled with the sounds of haggling and laughter, were now eerily quiet, with shuttered stalls and empty aisles. The cities, once symbols of human achievement, now resembled abandoned movie sets. Skyscrapers that once touched the sky now stood as hollow reminders of a past era. Streets that were once arteries of commerce and culture were now veins of desolation, with nature slowly reclaiming its space.
Survival became the only goal. The daily routines of work, school, and socializing were replaced by the primal need to secure food, shelter, and safety. Long lines formed outside grocery stores, with shelves often stripped bare, a stark reminder of the new reality we faced. Trust eroded, replaced by suspicion. The sense of community that once bound us together was frayed, as fear of the invisible enemy made us wary of one another. Arguments over scarce resources became common, and the simple act of passing someone on the street was fraught with tension. We looked at each other with wary eyes, wondering who among us carried the silent threat. Masks became a symbol of both protection and division, hiding our expressions and making it harder to connect. The eyes, once windows to the soul, now reflected a mix of fear, caution, and hope. The virus had reshaped our world, and in its wake it had reshaped us. It forced us to confront our vulnerabilities, to rethink our priorities, and to find new ways to connect and support each other. In this remade world, we learned to adapt, to find strength in resilience, and to hold on to hope for a better tomorrow.
Section 8. Scars on the soul. Even after the initial wave subsided, the scars remained. The virus had left its mark, not just on our bodies, but on our collective psyche. The world was a different place, forever altered by the shadow of the pandemic. We emerged from our homes, blinking in the sunlight, forever changed. The fear lingered, a constant hum beneath the surface of our lives. The whispers, though fainter, still echoed in the silence. Section 9. The new abnormal. We adapted. We had to. Life went on, but it was a new normal, one shaped by caution and uncertainty. Masks became commonplace, a stark reminder of the invisible enemy that still lurked among us.
Social gatherings, once a source of joy, were now approached with a degree of trepidation. The world had shrunk, our circles smaller, more guarded.
Section 10. In the shadow of what was. As the sun rose over the city, it cast long shadows, a metaphor for the times we were living through. The pandemic had forced us to confront our mortality, to face the stark reality that life is fragile and can change in an instant. The once bustling streets were now eerily silent, a haunting reminder of the invisible enemy we were all fighting. We had to acknowledge the fragility of our existence, to come to terms with the fact that we are all vulnerable. The simple act of holding hands became a symbol of solidarity and hope, while looking out of windows became a moment of reflection and longing for what once was. It had exposed the fault lines in our societies, the deep-seated inequalities and injustices that had been ignored for too long. Hospitals were overwhelmed, food banks were stretched to their limits, and unemployment lines grew longer by the day. The inequalities and injustices that we could no longer ignore were laid bare for all to see. People took to the streets, demanding change, holding signs that called for equality and justice. The aerial views of impoverished neighborhoods highlighted the stark contrast between the haves and the have-nots. But it had also revealed our resilience, our ability to come together in times of crisis. Healthcare workers became the heroes of our time, risking their lives to save others. Community volunteers stepped up, distributing food and providing support to those in need. Our capacity for compassion and courage shone through the darkness. People clapped for healthcare workers from their balconies, a small but powerful gesture of gratitude. Neighbours helped each other, forming bonds that would last long after the crisis had passed. We had faced the abyss, staring into the void of uncertainty and fear. Parks and playgrounds, once filled with laughter, were now empty. Storefronts closed, some never to reopen, leaving behind a trail of economic devastation. And in doing so, we had discovered a strength we never knew we possessed. Families found new ways to connect, spending time together at home, while others found solace in outdoor activities, maintaining social distance, but staying connected to the world around them. The world had changed, and so had we. The future remained uncertain, but we faced it together, united in our shared experience. The masks we wore became symbols of our collective responsibility to protect one another. People joined hands in solidarity, a testament to our enduring spirit. Forever marked by the shadow of what was, we stood at the precipice of a new dawn. As we look back at old photos, we remembered the world before the pandemic, but we also looked forward with hope, ready to rebuild and create a better future for all.